Hello and welcome to episode 28 of Game Day Gameplay. I'm your host, Sean Colangelo, joined as always by the man I have you the most in the wintertime, Todd from Florida. How's it going, man?
It's going good, Sean. How you doing, man?
I'm not bad, dude. It's like 95 here, so I can't even imagine what you're going through right now.
It's actually not that bad. It's really
Really?
not. You must be going through a heat wave or something, yeah.
Yeah, it sucks.
Uh, I mean, it's hot, obviously, but it's not like uncomfortably hot like it has been like beginning of August. It's starting to swing into that fall temperature, which is like perfect down here. So
I love the fall,
yeah,
because fall means hockey, which is the main topic of today's show. I did want to
that's true.
say, so this is episode 28, which means uh, this show is now officially older than me. Only that makes no sense because that's not how time works. Um, so anyway, um, last episode we broke down the Western Conference,
Pacific.
the Pacific Division of the Western Conference of the NHL. We're big hockey fans, so we're going a little more in depth in that regard, and kind of just breaking down every team in each division, trying to predict how they're going to do and where they will ultimately finish.
hmm
So today is the Central.
Yep.
So take it away.
All right. So same format as last time. I'm gonna go through them in the order that I think they're finished, starting with the team I think is gonna finish last in the Central, and then work my way up. Um, and the team that I think is going to finish last in the Central again is the Chicago Blackhawks, which is still weird to say, considering, I mean, we're not that far removed from them being considered probably the best team in the league.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
they just won a cup 3 years ago, so
yeah,
not that
and
long,
that was their third cup in 6 years. So I
right?
mean, and it is crazy how fast that kind of downfall has happened for them. But they won that cup, then they lost two playoff years. They went to the playoff 2 years, lost the first round in both. Last one got swept by Nashville, and then last year the wheels just completely fell off. They went 33, 39, and 10, which is good for 76 points, which did put them dead last in the Central. Um,
Now, when you win championships, obviously to a degree that's inevitable. Um,
yeah,
and,
it does happen.
we're obviously a bit concerned about that as Penguins fans, knowing that their window is closing. I'm hoping that the Penguins can avoid falling off that steep of a cliff. Um,
hmm
do you think with the Hawks, some of that was just because of the insane contracts they have?
Part of it, Tays' contract definitely doesn't help. Now, I'll still to this day think that Kane isn't necessarily overpaid.
No, no, no.
Kane at 10.5, maybe
He's
just a
worth it.
slightly a bit high, but he's worth it.
Yeah,
You can't pay a guy that's getting you 50, 60 points 2.5 mil though. I don't care what intangible he brings.
yeah.
I don't care what happens. He cannot make that much money dropping 60 points in a season. Um,
And then I know.
he's
Oh, sorry. Go
I
ahead.
mean he's overpaid by a good $4 million in my
Yeah.
opinion.
No, I totally agree. And then I know they have Seabrook at a pretty steep, right? Too.
Yeah, I think he makes around 7 mil, something like that.
Ooh.
Which honestly wasn't that bad until the last year and a half, 2 years. Seabrook has really just dropped off the edge, like out of
Yeah.
nowhere, man.
He was
Um,
getting scratched for a minute, wasn't he?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's brutal.
Um, it's kind of the same thing. He just, when they signed that contract, he and Keith were right up there in the top two, and that was one of the best top pairings in the league.
Right.
But Keith's fallen off a bit, not to the level that Seabrook has, but just enough to where you kind of worry about him being your number one defenseman. And then Seabrook, just the wheels completely came off somehow. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he took an injury and he hasn't been the same. But
That seems to more commonly happen to defensemen.
it
Sometimes
does.
they just
It
fall off a
does.
cliff like that for some reason.
One that we're familiar with, look at Paul Martin. I mean,
Yeah.
he was our top two guy. We let him go. He went and played 1 year in San Jose, and then he got waived the next year. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, um, which does make the Penguins look smart to not re-sign him, because I know there were a lot of people that were upset that they didn't at the time. But you
Right,
know.
right.
But anyway, like I said, the Blackhawks, they got 76 points last year. They did not make the playoffs. Obviously, that was not near enough near enough to get in. In terms of what they did in the off season, a lot of depth moves. Not a lot of real big splashes here.
They made some weird
Additions.
trade with Arizona, didn't they?
They traded Arizona. They got rid of Hosa's contract, is what they
Right.
did. Because Hosa is probably never going to play again with whatever he's got going on with his skin issue that he
Hmm.
can't play. They lost Hosa, they lost Osterley, and they lost Hinestroza in that contract, which Osterley was probably going to be like a number 6 guy for them. He's probably going to be like a number 6 guy for Arizona too, maybe a 7th. Hinestroza was a good 4th line guy. The Hawks really probably could have used him this year, but when we go over the lines, I'll show you why. But Hosa, obviously, like I said, that's just a cap move. He's never going to play again, so
Yeah.
that doesn't really make much. They did get Marcus Kruger back, so Hinestroza for Kruger. Hinestroza has more upside. Hinestroza is younger, but in terms of right now, they're probably about the same. Realistically, what they bring to the roster. And then other additions they made in the offseason, they did sign Chris Kunitz. Um, that would hurt for me to see because I didn't
Oh,
want to see
yeah,
Kunitz
I
go there,
forgot that
but
he went there. Yeah.
yeah. Um, they also signed Brandon Manning and they signed Cam Ward. So,
Huh.
uh, Kunitz and Ward especially, a lot of guys that are well past their prime. I mean, I still like Kunitz. Don't get me wrong. I still think Kunitz can be a solid 4th line guy for you, but Kunitz is also, I think, 39.
Yeah.
Ward's in his late 30s as well. So we'll see what happens with that. In terms of what we're looking at their lines, I do like their first line. They have DeBrincat, Schmaltz, and Patrick Kane. Schmaltz has really kind of come together as a center for Chicago. I mean, he's been one of the few bright spots they've had over the last year and a half. And then DeBrincat as well, not as much as Schmaltz, but he has less responsibility as a winger, but he's shown that he can score at the level they wanted him to when they drafted him. So that's a pretty good scoring top line. Second line is just where it starts to fall off a little bit, man. I mean, you got Brandon Saad, Jonathan Tays, and Sakura, who is a new coming player. I think he's a rookie. I don't think they acquired him from anywhere else. And he's going to come in and probably take that spot. Saad, we all know what happened with him last year. He had a really rough year. I don't even think he cracked 40 playing in their top 6. Um, Tays is what Tays is. He's probably going to drop you 50 or 60 points. But, you know, is that really worth the 10.5 mil again? I don't think so.
Nope.
Now, down in the third line, they got Edsel, Anisimov, and Highmore. And then their fourth line is Kunins, Kampf, and Hayden. So, I mean, you look at guys that are either rookies or guys that don't have a ton of NHL experience coming into this roster. You got Sakura, Edsel, Highmore, Kampf, and Hayden. That's a lot of inexperience on their forecourt. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty rough.
they're definitely young. It might pay off in time, but they're gonna have a hard time for a couple of years for sure. So
Yeah, yeah. Over on the defensive side, we got Duncan Keith as their number 1 still, and then Yoki Haru is projected to be his defensive partner this year. He's also another young guy. I think he's still considered a rookie. I don't know how many games he got last year. Um, their second pairing is Jan Ruda and Gustav Forsling, and then Duncan Seabrook, sorry. Brent Seabrook and Brandon Manning is their third pairing. Yeah, it's. I mean, Seabrook is awfully expensive to be playing your third pairing, but if he can recover a little bit, that's not an awful 5 guy. But it's just not a lot to like there, man. Yoki Haru could end up being good, but you don't know what you have with him. Other than that, there's not a lot to really get excited over.
yeah,
In net, they do have Crawford, which we are questioning what he's going to be able to do this year, still dealing with the stuff he had going on last year. And then Cam Ward is their backup. I think that's part of the reason they signed Ward, is not knowing if Crawford's gonna be able to play all year. Having an experienced goalie to come back in and play.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like to me because Ward's probably slipping out of his prime, but still not necessarily a backup goalie. So I definitely think they are expecting Crawford to miss some time.
Yeah, yeah. Now the projected cap space, they do have 5.5 mil in cap space projected right now, so they have enough to make some moves if they need to. But I really think this roster is not going to be good enough to have them in the thick of it come trade deadline time. Um, like I said, man, just looking at it overall, outside of DeBrincat, Schmaltz, and Kane, there's not a lot to like about this roster. I really don't even think Saad is that good anymore compared to what he was looked at a couple years ago. Tays is a known commodity, and then they don't really have much outside of that.
Now, where you want to bet the Pens still find a way to lose to him, though?
Oh, they will, 100%.
I don't know what it is.
We cannot beat Chicago. It's just one of those teams.
It's just one of those things when they play. It's just like it seems like nothing really goes right for the Penguins, and they just never beat them.
Yeah.
Oh well.
But that's who I have finishing last in the the Central. Next up, 6th place. I struggled with this one, man, because this is a good team, I think, and that kind of tells you how the Central is. But in 6th place, I had the Dallas Stars.
Dallas
Stars. Dallas actually did finish 6th in the division last year as well. They went 42, 32, and 8 and had 92 points, and that was enough to put them in next to last in their division. So the Central's stacked, man. The Central is just all around a rough division to play in, but they did not make the playoffs last year, obviously with finishing in 6th. Kind of a quiet off season. They haven't done a ton. The only real loss I could see that they had was Lettinen, which is probably addition by subtraction at this point in Lettinen's career.
Yeah, I would say this.
Additions, they got Valerian Nichushkin back. He came back over from Russia, and he is supposed to start playing for them again this year. They also added Blake Como, Roman Polak, and Anton Khudobin to back up Bishop and Net. So that's not a bad goalie tandem. Considering their goaltending went from Niemi and Lettinen to in 2 years being Bishop and Khudobin, that's a pretty steep turnaround. But it's a lot better, I think, than Niemi and Lettinen. And a lot cheaper too, considering they were paying Niemi and Lettinen, I think 11 mil combined. So.
Oh god, yeah, that whole that's you can't have 10 mil tied up in goalies. That's just not gonna work.
No, it's never gonna work. But what their lines look like, obviously they have one of the better first lines in the league. They got Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, and Alex Radulov. That's just a all-around filthy line. Ben's a former Art Ross guy. Tyler Seguin can drop 90 on you pretty easy, and Radulov can hold his own on that line too. So, after that, though, is where it starts to somewhat fall apart. I have their second line as Matthias Janmark, Jason Spezza, and Valerian Nichushkin. Spetz has fallen off a lot from what he used to be.
Yeah, he's not getting younger. So.
He's in his late 30s, yeah. Janmark's decent, but ideally you probably want him out of your top 6. And then Nichushkin is just a question mark at this point. You have no idea what you're getting with him. So
right.
Third line, I do have Como, Faxa, and Pitlick. That's not an awful third line. Como showed in Colorado that he can pretty much play at a top 9 level.
I miss that guy. Blake Como sexual.
Como was fun to watch when he was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He just seems like an easy guy to get behind too. You know what I mean?
He's just a grinder.
But, yeah.
Hard worker. But love the guy.
They do have Radek Faxa on that line. I think Radek Faxa is a good center. He could end up slotting up in the second spot, and Spezza could drop. He plays a game that's more built around the bottom 6, though. He's more of a, like you said, a grinder, a defensive guy. And then Pitlick's nothing to get excited over, but he can hold his own. Their fourth line, Devin Shore, Martin Hansel, and Nick Ritchie.
Wait,
Again,
their fourth. Wait a minute. Martin Hansel's in their fourth line.
yeah. Um, when you consider they signed him for $4.5 million, though, that's not great.
Yeah, but I thought. I mean, I thought he was pretty good. I mean,
He's fallen off a lot. He missed pretty much the entire last year with injury.
okay.
Um, so
Huh.
I mean, down the center, obviously there's worse center cores you can have than Sagan, Spezza, Fox, and Hansel.
Well,
It's just a
yeah.
matter of you have Sagan, who's your first center, and then all three of the other ones are probably ideal 3 to 4 guys. You know what I mean? So you don't really have a true number 2C there. Is the problem. Especially over defense. Yep, go ahead.
I was gonna say this is a random thought, but
Mm-hmm.
do you also feel like Seguin would be better suited as a winger, and then they would have their top center is Ben. I mean, well, I'm sure those aren't their actual positions, but like I don't know. I look at Ben and he seems like he's kind of tougher and just seems more like a center to me. And then I look at Seguin is a lot more kind of finesse, and I just see him as a winger. I mean, that could just be my perception, but I don't really know. But
as far as I know, they've. I mean, I think Sagan's played wing in his career, but he did come up as a center. I don't think Ben's ever played center.
well, I mean, centers they can all play winger, but wingers can't all play center. So,
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. When I look at those two, I feel like their rules should be reversed. But like I said, that's just one of my random thoughts. I mean,
there's a reason Ben's the captain and Sagan isn't.
Yeah, dude, I love Jamie Benn. You know what? He kind of reminds me of Lemieux sometimes for some reason. I don't even really know why. Just pretty good size, pretty tough guy, and just an amazing scorer. And
yeah.
And you have to love it too because the guy wears no visor. I love it.
True. Yeah.
I love it.
I think he's more consistent than Sagan. I
think
every night Ben's going to be one of your best players on the ice. Sagan can absolutely be. It's just he's kind of known to take nights off. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. So anyway, the defense.
We got Mark Mathot and John Klingberg. Klingberg is a really good defenseman. I really like what they've got in him.
And a really good contract too.
Oh yeah. They got Asa Lindell and Julius Honka as their second pairing, and then Heiskanen is making his debut. It's thought this year he was gonna, make the roster. He was their third overall pick 2 years ago.
Yeah. So that was the guy that was kind of that supposedly was who the Senators wanted them to include for Carlson, and the Stars didn't want to part with him. I mean, that trade could still happen theoretically, but supposedly they don't want to let him go. So
it's rough to give up on a third overall pick 2 years into it. You know what I mean? Before he's even played a game. So I kind of see why. Even if what you're getting back is Erik Karlsson.
Right.
They might also be thinking, I mean, do they really need Karlsson if they have Klingberg? Because they're both right defensemen. They both play very similar games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and you don't want too many of those guys on your blue line. At times, I feel like that's a little bit of issue with the Penguins. They have a lot of guys who are very finesse, and you need guys like that. But your whole core shouldn't be that, So.
Yeah. But anyway, Heiskanen is probably going to play third pairing with Johns unless they put him up with Lindell and move Honka down. Just depends what comes out of training camp. And then in net, like we already talked about, they have Ben Bishop and Anton Khudobin. They have about $3.8 million left over in cap, so they're not hard up against it. If somehow they do end up putting it together, they have a little bit of cap room to make some moves at the deadline. I don't know, man. I just look at the roster. While they do have a great first line, and I think they'll be a decent team, I don't see the depth there. at forward
Yeah.
to really make them threaten in that, especially in the Central, given how tough it is. And their defense is decent, but outside of Klingberg, not really any big difference makers. Heiskanen could be, but we don't know what he is yet. So.
Well, you have to keep in mind too, even if all that were a little better than what it was, their issue's always been goaltending. I mean, that's their biggest
Yep.
question mark. And
Yep.
Ben Bishop.
I was about to say I hadn't even got into it, but
Yeah,
Bishop,
yeah. I'll let you go ahead. Go ahead.
It's just you never know what you're gonna get with him, man. That's
Yeah.
what it is. He really hasn't played consistently good hockey since probably 3 years ago with Tampa, 4 years ago even maybe.
Pretty much up until he got hurt against that series against the Penguins, it seems like after that he's not quite been the same.
Yep, it really does. Now Khudobin could make him play better because, quite frankly, if he doesn't play well enough, Khudobin could end up just taking the spot from him.
Right.
He almost did the Rask this year in Boston. There was a big stretch there where Khudobin was getting the starts and Rask was sitting. Rask ended up obviously taking it back, but so yeah, Khudobin is no slouch. He can push him, so maybe that makes Bishop play a little bit better, knowing that his job's not necessarily safe. But
right.
I don't know, man. Just tough division, tough place to play, and Dallas just. Well, I do like some of the pieces they have, and I do think they're probably going to be an 85 to 90 point team. I still don't think they're going to, make the playoffs or get past sixth in their division. So.
Well, I think some of that will depend on. Well, I mean, I guess this is really with any division. I think a lot of their fate will depend on the other team. I mean, there are a lot of teams in the Central, much like the Pacific, that are kind of a crapshoot. You just don't know what you're going to get with them. Which I assume you will get to next. So I'll just let you keep going.
Yep. So fifth place in the Central. This team could end up even make the playoffs, finishing in fifth. It just depends. It very well could be 5 from the Central, 3 from the Pacific. It's not at all impossible, given how kind of mediocre the Pacific is. But in fifth place, I have the Minnesota Wild. This is kind of a risk because Minnesota is just one of those weirdly consistent teams that finish, around third or fourth in division almost always. But last year they went 45, 26, and 11, which was good for 101 points. They did make the playoffs, but they lost in the first round to Nashville, I believe, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Well, no, because
there was a winning.
Nashville played the Avs, so I think it was Winnipeg. Yeah,
it was Winnipeg.
Yeah,
it was Winnipeg. You're right. So, yeah, they. I think they lost in 5 in that one. I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
I'd have to look back up, but.
Yeah, it was 5.
Gotcha. In terms of what they've done in the off season, again, a lot of depth moves. Nothing real big in their top. They did lose Matt Cullen. He came back to Pittsburgh to be dad again. Also lost Tyler Ennis and Daniel Winnick. None of those guys are really going to make that big of a difference, overall in their roster.
Yeah.
They added J.T. Brown, Eric Fair, Matt Reed, Andrew Hammond, Greg Pattern, and Matt Hendricks. So they added a lot of guys, just a lot of depth guys that are probably going to be extra forwards or fourth liners, and then, depth defensemen as well. Their lines, what we're looking at here, I have their first line as Parise, Stahl, and Zucker. Parise is not their best left wing, but I think they'll play him there because they need to get some kind of value out of him. Obviously, if you're going by just who you should play there, it probably should be Nino. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Eric Stahl, it's crazy what he's done since he's got to Minnesota, dude. He dropped 41 goals, I think, last year.
Yeah, he had a really good year.
Yeah. it came out of nowhere, man. Because I mean, he was pretty good in his time in Carolina. I don't think he was ever 40 goals good. Maybe like 10 years ago, like back then.
Right.
Then he went to the Rangers for like half a year, didn't he? At the deadline.
I think I'm not even
I'm pretty sure
positive.
that's where he went because I think he went from playing with Jordan to playing with Mark, and didn't really
Oh,
do anything
that's
with the
right.
Rangers. They left in that offseason, signed with Minnesota, and that kind of revived his career playing with him.
Yeah.
Because I think he was an afterthought pretty much on everyone's radar at that point. But
Yep.
um, Slicker's also been really good. He's been one of their most consistent forwards. He's a young guy, but he's been playing really well on their top six. So, and then their second line, I have Nino Niederreiter, Mikko Koivu, and Granlund. That's a really good second line. Um, like I said, I think Niederreiter is their best left wing. I just think they're going to play Parise at the top line to try to get him going. Koivu is getting up there in age, but he doesn't seem to be losing a step. He's a really good two-way center. Granlund is also kind of the same thing as Koivu, really good two-way guy, can score if he needs to. Um, just a really solid top six there, in my opinion. The biggest question mark is Parise. What can he do? He's missed a lot of hockey over the last 2 years, and he's getting up there in age. But if he can kind of recover back to what he was a little bit when he played for Jersey, then this could end up being a pretty good team. Um,
The only, the main thing Zach Parise has accomplished, in my opinion, is after Bale wrote a song about him. That's really it.
that's true. Yep.
That's about it.
Which we're going to see them soon too, as well.
We
October.
are. We're pretty excited.
Mm-hmm. Third line, they've got Greenway, Eriksson Ek, and Charlie Coyle. Greenway, I think, came up for them last year and played a little bit, so I don't think he's a rookie, but he's still young and still kind of inexperienced. Eriksson Ek is very young. He was supposed to be a blue chip prospect for them. He was one of the main guys. One of the big pieces they didn't want to lose in the expansion draft too, because I think there were a lot of people saying they were going to trade him to keep somebody, and they said no. Um, Charlie Coyle is a really good player. He could easily find his way to the top six if any of those guys above him don't play up to the level they're supposed to. But if he's playing on your third line, that's a really good problem to have. Um,
Yeah, very true.
and then their fourth line, Marcus Foligno, Eric Fair is who I have there for right now. That could change, and JT Brown. Um,
Good lord, Eric Fair has been on like 19 different teams the past 3 years.
I know, man. Hop from Pittsburgh to Toronto to San Jose to Minnesota, like
It's crazy.
yeah. But he can still play. He can still be your four. If he's your 4C, you've got bigger problems. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way.
yeah, for sure.
Um, so, uh, overall, that's a solid forward lineup. Not really much to complain about, man. It's just what's Eriksson gonna do? Is he gonna improve from last year because he didn't really score at the level they wanted him to? Um, what's Greenway gonna do with that 3C? Um, yeah, just a lot of questions there. But on their defense, they do have Ryan Suter, who is still the number one guy. He's starting to age a little bit, but he's still playing 28 minutes a night, still playing consistent. Suter's one of those guys that's always been to me, you know, he's not gonna be on the highlight reel that often. He's just gonna play consistently solid hockey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and then Jared Spurgeon is his defensive partner on their first line. Then they got Jonas Brodin, Matt Dumba. I have Sealer and Pattern as their third pairing. That top four is really good. Suter, Spurgeon, Brodin, and Dumba. That's a really good top four. Um, they have that even after last year they traded away. Um, help me out here. They traded him to Buffalo. I can't remember his name. His
Oh,
defenseman.
Scandella.
Scandella, yeah. They lost Scandella and they still have that good of a defensive lineup. So
Right.
that
Yeah.
they had some moves to make there. But in net they've got Dubnik and Stalock. So on their back end they're really good. They're really set. It's just a matter of do they have the depth up front with Ford to really push. They are kind of tight against the cap. They've only got 1.8 mil in space. So They don't have a lot of room to play around with unless they move some guys out. But um, just looking at it overall, I think they've got a good team. Like I said, I think they very well could make the playoffs. Even though I have them in fifth, they could sneak in the last wildcard spot. I just think the teams that are ahead of them in the Central have done more to get better in the offseason or have better lineups all around.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I don't know. The Wild are a lot like the team that might be next on your list, or maybe one higher. They remind me a lot of St. Louis. Like, they're going to be a pretty solid, consistent team throughout the regular season. It's just, what are they going to do in the playoffs? Usually,
Yep.
it's one and done. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It honestly probably wouldn't hurt the Wild to miss the playoffs and maybe take a chance at a lottery pick because I think part of their problem has been they're stuck in that level of mediocrity
Yeah.
where they're always making the playoffs but they can't do anything, so they're not getting really any good prospects coming in to make them better.
Yep.
Kind of thing. Detroit was there for a long time. Detroit was there for a lot longer than Minnesota's been there. I think Detroit was there for longer than Minnesota's been a team. But
they were winning championships, so,
for a while, but then the last pretty much since about 2010, Detroit was in that 2010 to 2015. Detroit was in that level where they were just good enough to make the playoffs, but not really good enough to do anything in it. But they couldn't rebuild because of that.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, So, but uh, but yeah, that's where I have Minnesota. And then coming up in fourth, I do not actually have St. Louis. I have the Colorado Avalanche.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought it was probably them.
Yeah. Now, funny enough, the Avalanche did finish higher than St. Louis this year, but that came down to a game 82. Colorado versus St. Louis when it made the playoffs, and Colorado won that one in overtime, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was nuts.
That was a crazy game, but they finished 43-30-9, which was good for 95 points. They made the playoffs. They lost in round one to Nashville. Didn't really threaten Nashville that much, but Nashville had a lot better of a team than Colorado did this year, so that was kind of to be expected. But
yeah,
in terms of what they've done in the off season, they lost Bernier. He went and signed with I can't remember where he signed. I'll have to look it up. They lost Blake Como. He went to Dallas. They lost Andrew Hammond. He went to Minnesota, actually. And Neil Yakupov is just gone back to Russia somewhere to do whatever he's doing. Which, while we're on the topic of Yakupov, I'm just going to bring it up. He has to be the biggest number one overall bust in probably NHL history.
One of them, yeah.
We'll leave that. But what they added our boy Ian Cole on their blue line. They added Matt Calvert and they added Philip Grubauer in net. So, they lost a goaltender, but they added a goaltender. They lost they lost a depth four. They added a depth four. They got a pretty good top four guy in Cole as well. So, what they've done with their lines, their first line is still probably one of my favorite lines in hockey. Landeskog, McKinnon, and Rantanen. Nate McKinnon last year was just absolutely amazing. Dude dropped 92 points in 71 games. I honestly, if it was up to me when we were voting for the Hart, I know what Hall did was impressive. I really do, but I would have voted for McKinnon.
Yeah, I agree.
I just think McKinnon did it in a tougher division than Hall did. But Landeskog is... he is what he is. He's power forward. He can score. He can play defense. He's pretty solid all around. Rantanen dropped 81 points last year. I did not know that. But, part of that's probably playing alongside McKinnon when he dropped 92. But Rantanen has picked up and has really found his spot on the team as well in their top six.
Yeah.
Then on their second line, I have Carl Soderberg, Alex Kerfoot, and Matt Nieto.
Carl Soderberg, eh?
Yeah. Soderberg probably shouldn't be in their top six at this point, but I think that's more just in name alone, and that there's probably some younger guys who are going to get more minutes than him when it comes to power play and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Kerfoot has been kind of a revelation for them, a guy that they didn't really have as a blue chip prospect, but has played really well. And then Nieto, just a solid guy, you know what I mean? He could get pushed out of that spot by Andrew Gatto, Um, it just depends, really. All these lines are subjective. They could not be anywhere close to what it ends up being come game one, but they're just what I have on paper for right now. But
Yeah.
the third line, I have Ty Yost, JT Comfer, and Sven Andrighetto. That's a really young line. Really young. I think Yost is still considered a rookie, I believe, because I think he only got like 12 games last year. Comfer is a second-year guy, and Andrighetto is the most senior on there, but I think he's only been in for 3 or 4 years. I'm not 100% sure on how long he's been around, but um, and then their fourth line, Matt Calvert, Toninato, I don't know who that is. He must be a new guy coming in for them. And Colin Wilson, who they did get from Nashville in the trade about a year and a half ago, I think, for or last year actually, the Duchesne trade. He was one of the pieces that went back.
Oh yeah, Matty Douche.
On defense, they got Ian Cole, Eric Johnson, Samuel Girard, who was another piece they got out of the Duchesne trade, Tyson Berry, Zadorov, and Nemeth. They got Varlamov and Grubauer in net. Varlamov will probably start to begin with, but don't be surprised if Grubauer ends up taking that. And then they do have 12.1 million cap space to play around with too.
Damn.
Yeah. So, what do you think about Colorado's roster and what they've got going on?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I think by a lot of standards, they kind of overachieved last year. I mean, I don't think a lot of people even had them making the playoffs, right?
No, but part of that is probably the absolutely dismal year they had before that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's not too bad. I think it was a good call to get Grubauer. I think it was a good call to get Ian Cole as well. I mean, Cole got pretty much exactly what I thought he was going to get, like
4.2 or something like that.
4.25, I believe. Because I know, we talked about that a lot because we knew that the Pens were going to be able to keep Cole, and we were saying that we weren't going to be one bit surprised if he got between 4 and 5, which is a little bit of an overpayment, but that's just the way it goes. I think Cole has the potential to be a top 4 guy. Can he do it consistently? Well, we're probably going to find out. So, yeah, I mean, I think they'll be pretty good. I could see him having a similar year to last year, where they just kind of sneak in. But obviously their issue is that they have to deal with the Preds and Jets and have fun with that.
Yeah. See, the reason I have them finishing above Minnesota and coming in fourth, I really like. I think the addition to Calvert will help a lot. Calvert, as much as I can't stand him, because I really can't, especially for playing with Columbus, he's a solid fourth liner. You know what I mean? He's probably going to score you 30 to 35 points on a fourth line role, which is all you can ask for. On top of that, they're going to get a lot more from Yost and Comfer this year in their second years coming in. Plus, I really like a top 4 of Cole, Johnson, Girard, and Berry. I think that could really be more solid than what they've had on their defensive lineup in the past. On top of that, the 12.1 mil, if they're even anywhere near the hunt, they're going to have the most flexibility to make some moves. And they've got a heck of a trade piece because they have Ottawa's first-round pick in this coming draft.
That's right, yeah, they do.
Thanks to the Duchesne trade. And that could very well be the number 1 overall pick. You know what I mean?
It probably will be, yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if it comes down to Ottawa trades Erik Karlsson to get that pick back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a first round. Oh, you mean with Colorado?
Yes.
I see.
Yes.
So, okay. So you're saying you think the Avs are going to make a move for Karlsson?
I can see it for sure. I mean, you throw Karlsson in that blue line, pushes Johnson down to probably third pairing. Zadorov Johnson's your third pair, then Cole Carlson, Gerard Berry. That's a solid blue line, man.
Yeah,
That's a solid blue line.
that could happen.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't have to add much either. I mean, Ottawa is going to be desperate for picks, given that they really shouldn't have given up that pick to begin with for Duchesne. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean it's one of the things I could see happening. I don't know that Ottawa would trade that pick, given how high it's probably projected to be, even if it's for Carlson. But just throwing ideas out there. They have 12.1 million to play around with, so they could take in his entire contract without having to move anybody out. So.
Well, you know what else too? With trades like that, a lot of the time they end up like executing with a team that nobody really thought of. Like in the off season, like everybody was talking about like Carlson landing, in Tampa or Dallas or what have you. And a lot of the time, they'll end up somewhere that you didn't really even think of. You know what I mean? So.
Um, yeah, the Vegas was another big one too, especially
Yeah,
more so
yeah,
at the
yeah. That's right.
deadline than in the off season. But yeah.
Yep.
But we'll just have to see what happens. I have them finishing fourth. I just think Minnesota's going to regress a little bit, and I think Colorado's going to take advantage of that. It's probably going to be a 1 or 2 point difference, though. It's going to be a close one. So.
Right. Yeah, I can see it.
That said, coming in third and the top three in this division, I'm pretty set on. I have St. Louis finishing third. They finished 44, 32, and 6 last year. They did miss the playoffs, but as we already talked about, they missed it by 1 point to Colorado because of that last game. So,
right.
Here's the reason why I have St. Louis at third in the division and why I think they're so set there and safe there. St. Louis has had a great offseason, man. In terms of what they've added, they signed David Perron for nothing. They signed Patrick Maroon for nothing. They signed Tyler Bozak for nothing. Not nothing, but in terms of they didn't have to give anybody up for him.
Yeah.
They did trade and they got Ryan O'Reilly as well. They also picked up Jordan Nolan and Chad Johnson in their net. In terms of what they lost, Bo Bennett, which you and I.
Oh no.
Kyle Brodziak, Carter Hutton. That one could hurt. He is now going to be their starter up in Buffalo, but we'll just have to see how Jake Allen does. But losing Hutton, you could definitely hurt them. They lost Tage Thompson in the O'Reilly deal, but that's not really much to lose to Ryan O'Reilly. They also lost Saboka and Berglund in that deal, but those are all depth guys for them.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's go over their lines. You'll see why I'm pretty high on them. They've got Ryan Fabry, Ryan O'Reilly, and Vladimir Tarasenko on their first line. Their second line is Schwartz, Shin, and Perron. Then Maroon, Bozak, and Steen, and Soshnikov, Robert Thomas, and Barbashev. A fourth line of Patrick Maroon, Tyler Bozak, and Alex Steen. Or third line, sorry. That's pretty lethal. I mean.
Yeah, I mean Steen is a far cry from that year where he was scoring like 1 goal a game, but he's still a good player.
Yeah, I mean he's not what he used to be, but if he's on your third line, especially next to Tyler Bozak and Patrick Maroon, you can't ask for much more than that, dude. On top of that, I mean, we saw how Shin played for them when he went there last year. Schwartz was one of their best players last year. He was dropping like point per game pretty much. Tarasenko they still have. O'Reilly is capable of being a 60-point guy. Fabry could come back up and play really well. They've got a really solid top nine.
Wait, wasn't it Fabry? Isn't he like hurt? Or am I just?
He has been for about a year and a half. He hasn't played any hockey at all for a good while.
Okay.
He's supposedly ready to go. Everything I've read said that he's good. He's back at full swing. He's ready to play. You just don't know how long it's going to last. But
yeah, because he's a really good player. So
yes, he is. And for some reason he can't go, Maroon would slot up. They would do Schwartz in the first line, Maroon on the second. But
right.
What they have at defense, they have Joel Edmondson, Alex Pietrangelo, Jay Bouwmeester, Colton Perico, Vince Dunn, Robert Bortuzzo, and then in net they have Jake Allen and Chad Johnson. They're right up on it in the cap. They have $990K left, so less than $1 million.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Kind of close.
they are. On defense, I mean, that's a solid top four, man. Petrangelo is one of the more underrated defensemen in the league. I think he's a top 10 guy. You know what I mean? He plays so consistently, but he just doesn't really get as much recognition as some of the other big names out there. Perico, we are really high on. He's been a really solid young guy for them. And then Bobeister and Edmondson are just solid players. You know, they're not flashy, they're not big names, but they're not. You know, they could easily play top 4 minutes.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
biggest question mark for St. Louis is their goaltending. What's Jake Allen going to do? What kind of year is he going to have? Because they cannot rely on Chad Johnson as their backup if he needs to play a lot of number of games.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. You know, like one of those situations where you have two really good guys, you don't really have a true number one guy. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that usually doesn't work out. But
Well, I mean, it just depends because it depends on which Allen shows up. I mean, you gotta remember like 2 years ago, Jake Allen was lighting up the league and was, you know, a lot of people were saying he was one of the best goaltenders out there. And then last year he fell off enough to where Hutton, you know, ended up starting a lot of games. Toward the end, he's picked it up again. It just depends. Allen is so hit or miss. It
yeah,
really just depends on which Allen you're getting.
yeah, pretty much.
With that. But the problem is they don't have a guy like Hutton who can step in if you're getting the Allen that isn't the one that they want. So.
Yeah.
But, uh, but yeah, I have St. Louis dropping in at third. Probably not a surprise to you who I have at second, Nashville.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
They finished, actually, they finished as the best team in the entire league last year. 53, 18, and 11. They had 119 points. They lost in round 2 of the playoffs to Winnipeg.
Yeah, the Jets.
So, yep. In terms of what they lost over the offseason, Mike Fisher, I think, retired for good this time.
Oh, no, he'll come back.
You think so?
If they make the playoffs, he'll come back.
They also lost Hartnell. I think he retired for them. And
Oh,
then
no.
Edwin also retired. In terms of what they added, I mean, the only name they added that I think is going to make the playoffs is Hamhuis, or make the team, is Hamhuis. They also added Connor Brickley, Zach Ronaldo, and Grimaldi, but I think all of those guys are probably going to be minor guys unless it's an injury.
Yeah, dude, it's kind of funny. I remember, a couple months ago, like I remember looking at their, I remember seeing they had like a shit ton of cap space, and I was like, that's terrifying. But then I realized they had to re-sign like half their team, so I was like, oh, okay.
Well, with everything they have re-signed, they still have 7.6 million cap space.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Damn. Well.
Yep. Well, that's not going to hold. Ellis's contract extension is going to kick in next year. That's going to eat into a good portion of that. But part of the reason why they get that is because they got Arvidsson for so cheap.
Or you know
Arvidsson
what?
signed
I
like
might
a
be thinking
6-year
of
deal
Jets.
for like
I'm sorry.
4.2 mil.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, I mean they've got some cap space to play around with if they need to, which is scary when we go over their roster. But their lines, their first line is still Forsberg, Johansson, and Arvidsson. That's a good line. It's a really solid line. Philip Forsberg is one of my favorite players in the league, dude. He is just insanely talented. I love watching that guy play.
Yeah, he's really good.
Second line, they've got Kevin Fiala, Cal Torres, and Craig Smith. Third line, they've got Eli Tolvanen, who is a really exciting prospect for them coming in. He's played a little bit in the playoffs last year and was just lighting up the Swiss League before that. So we'll have to see what he does. Nick Bonino and Ryan Hartman, and then they've got Colton Sissons, Callie Yarncroc, and Austin Watson on their fourth line. They've got a lot of depth, man. They've got just solid forwards all the way up and down their lineup. There's not one guy I look at there and be like, yeah, that guy probably shouldn't be on a team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when we go over to defense, Yossi, Ellis, Ekholm, Subban, Ham, Houston, Weber. Again, I mean, maybe Yannick Weber, you can make the case, is probably better as a 7 than a 6, but that's about it in terms of, nitpicking their defense. Their top four is easily one of the best in the league. Easily.
Yeah.
Yossi is so solid. So solid, dude. He's just one of the best defensemen out there. Subban, we know what he is, maybe not the best on the defensive side, but he can contribute offensively pretty heavily. Ekholm and Ellis are really underrated dudes as well. Then in net, Rene and Saros. Here's the biggest question mark I have for Nashville is what Rene are we getting? Are we getting Vezina Rene or are we getting playoff Rene? Because they're two completely separate goalies.
I'm telling you what, man, it's not gonna it won't shock me one bit if that ends up being the reason they lose again.
Mm-hmm. And it's starting to become a trend, man. I mean, I know Nashville didn't have a lot of success before the last couple years, but man, Rene makes the playoffs, and it just seems like he completely falls apart.
No, it's been 2 straight years, so it's not a coincidence. He's a great goalie, but yeah, and I mean, we were talking about how at this point they should probably just get rid of him, but he's in the last year of his contract, so unless he wins them a Stanley Cup, I think he might be done in Nashville.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Don't be surprised to see Saros get more starts in the regular season this year than usual, just so Nashville can get an eye on what they have with him and determine whether they're going to need to replace Rene in the offseason or if Saros can step in.
Yeah.
Outside of that, though, I mean, we know that Nashville has one of the best rosters in the league. They didn't finish, they didn't win the President's Cup for nothing. They are a good team up and down the lineup. They have one of the best defenses in the league. I think Winnipeg, obviously, who I have first since they're the only team we haven't talked about. I think Winnipeg has a up-and-coming roster that's going to really, really play some lights-out hockey this year. And I think Nashville's goaltending is going to be what gives them issues.
Yeah, so when I said earlier about them, about their off season. So I was thinking of Winnipeg actually, who had like all this cap space, and I was like, holy shit! But then, they had a lot of guys to resign. Nashville was the team that was going virtually untouched. Like they didn't lose anybody.
Nope. Like I said, the only guys they lost were Fisher, Hartnell, and Emelin, which all three were.
Yeah, it's whatever.
I mean, Emelin probably is the one that hurt the most, but they replaced him with Ham Hughes, so.
Yeah, they're for sure going to be right back in the mix. I'm assuming after this coming season, I find it hard to believe that they won't have some more turnover just because, you don't have a lot of off seasons where you have virtually no turnover, so that's not going to last.
At some point, they're going to lose one of their top 4 guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably going to be Ekholm because they already extended Ellis, but, once Yossi needs to get his big boy contract, which is going to be probably north of 7 to 8, mil, whenever he resigns, they're not going to be able to afford to keep him, Ellis, Subban, and Ekholm, and still field their front end. So.
Yeah, the point I'm getting at is, I'm not saying that if they don't win this season, that's it, their window's closed. But you only had so many cracks at it, man. And I mean, they were, they obviously were in the final in 2017. They went pretty far this past season. So many things have to go your way to even get all the way to the final, let alone win the final. I mean, obviously we saw some things did not go their way against the Penguins, and they lost. It's just the way things go. So, yeah, if they're going to bring it home, they need to do it pretty soon.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. And yeah, they've got some contracts that aren't going to last, and that's going to lead to some turnover. I don't know how long Forsberg signed for, but he's only making $6 million. That's not going to stay whenever that comes up.
Oh, hell no.
That's not going to stay.
When he's up, he'll probably get close to twice that.
Yeah. So I mean, I see where you're coming at. I don't necessarily think this is their last year, but
No,
you
no,
know,
no, no.
they need to, if they're gonna get it, they need to start taking this seriously. Because
And hey, maybe Rene blows up again. They let him walk. They get somebody else, and they win it. You know what I mean?
yeah, well now if Rene walks, that frees up $7 million on them though. You got to remember that too. So
Right.
that'll help, but yeah, we'll just have to see how they do. But the team I have winning the Central this year is Winnipeg Jets. Another one of those teams. If you told me that 2-3 years ago, I'd been like, yeah, you're crazy. But man, a lot of the young guys they got have really paid off. They were right on Nashville's heels last year. They finished 52, 20, and 10, and they finished with 114 points. So they were only 3 behind Nashville. But they did better than Nashville in the playoffs. They made it all the way to the conference final, and they hit the Vegas Magic and lost to Vegas in 5 games.
Right. Which was, I didn't see that one coming.
They were the only team in the West, though, that I think made Vegas nervous when they came out and stomped Vegas in that first game.
Yeah.
San Jose pushed Vegas to 6 games, but even the games that San Jose won, they were close games. Winnipeg was the only team I saw until Washington that gave Vegas some trouble, even if it was only in 1 game. So,
yeah.
In terms of how their offseason went, they did lose Stasny, who was only a rental for them last year. He went to Vegas. Steve Mason's gone. I don't think that's a big loss considering how well Hellebuck played. They lost Matt Hendricks and Joel Armia. They added Bressois for goaltending depth, Nick Cordelis, and that's about it. So they lost some guys, but they have the roster just thinking of field is still disgusting. I mean, we're talking Ehlers, Scheifele, Laine on their first line. Kyle Connor could be little, but we think Roslovic is going to come in and take that second spot. He's a young guy. I think he's going to be a rookie for them. He might have played enough last year to be his second year, 100%, but he could end up taking that second spot.
Whoa, hey. Yeah. Your mic's breaking up on me.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Is that any better?
Yeah, I think we're good now.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Anyway, what I was saying is Roslovic's probably going to get that second line center with Wheeler on the wing, and then their third line is Perreault, Little, and Vesalainen, and then Kopp, Lowry, and Tanev on their fourth line. This is the reason why I have Winnipeg winning the Central, and it's because they have one of the deepest and, in my opinion, best four-cores in the league.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're insane.
Scheifele's a top 5 center. He doesn't get the recognition for it, but Scheifele's amazing.
Yeah, he's really, really solid. Yeah.
Laine is probably the closest thing we've seen to Alex Ovechkin since Alex Ovechkin.
Yeah.
In terms of just the best pure goal scorer coming in. And then we've got Ehlers, Wheeler, Connor, Perreault, Little. I mean, all these guys, Lowry, Kopp, just so many talented forwards. And then their defense is nothing to really sleep on either. Morrissey, Truba, Myers, Byfuglien, Kulikov, and Niku. And then Hellebuck and Comrie in net with $2.9 million cap to play with. Yeah, man. I mean, there's up and down one of the deepest rosters in the league, which has a lot to do with their GM being patient and building the right way, building through the draft, building through young players. Because, Winnipeg, they just won their first playoff game ever last year as a franchise, and they went all the way to the conference final. And I have them winning their whole freaking conference this year. So the GM's done a lot well. He's built the team really well, and they're just going to be a force to be reckoned with in this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, honestly, dude, they kind of reminded me of Nashville from a couple years ago. This team that kind of seemingly came out of nowhere and just suddenly you're like, damn, this team's really good.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the Preds do have a slightly superior blue line, but I think the Jets beat them just because of how deep their forwards are. Like, Nashville just couldn't compete with that. And I think it'll be the same
thing the Preds
thing
don't
this year.
have that they would really love is a guy like Scheifele, that true number one center.
Yeah.
That can just step up and take over.
Well,
I mean, I I like Ryjo. I do. I like Johansson. I think Johansson, ideally, on a Stanley Cup contending team, is your 2 seed, though.
Yeah, he's pretty damn good. But yeah, he's not quite up there in a tier with Mark Scheifele, Crosby, so on and so forth.
McDavid, guys like that. They can just.
Yeah, he's really close, but. All right, sorry, we got cut off there. I can only capture an hour at a time on the PS4 share. But anyway, we were talking about Rajo and Scheifele.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, Scheifele, like I said, is just one of those guys that everyone else on the team could be having an off night, but he could just come in and say, "Hey, I'm winning this game." You know what I mean? Just completely takes over any game that he's in if he's playing up, up to his highest level. And again, he's got two really good wingers on his side with Ehlers and Line, and I just don't know how anyone matches up with that. It's pretty insane.
I mean, when you're that deep at forward, you see like even the Preds, who I really would say have the best defense in the league, still couldn't beat them.
Yep.
I mean, it's just too much.
It took Vegas and the magic they had with everything they had going on in their season last year to stop Winnipeg. And
yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me at all to see Winnipeg in the Cup this year. I don't know that they'll necessarily win it, but it would not surprise me to see them come out of the West.
Well, no, I mean that's kind of what you alluded to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely agree, dude. I don't think Vegas is going to have the magic to be able to stop them. I think it's either going to be the Preds or the Jets, and I just think the Jets are just a better team. So
yeah.
I definitely would agree. I think the Jets are going to come out of the West, which like I wanted to actually, I wanted to ask you that anyway, because obviously we are kind of wrapping up the Western Conference with this episode. Yeah, I agree. And like as far as the Central itself goes, I'm pretty much with you. I think the most interesting team to watch is going to be Colorado.
Yeah. I might have them a little high. Like I said, I have them finishing ahead of Minnesota, but really only by like a point or two.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things where, last season everybody wrote them off and thought they were going to be in the basement, and then, they ended up making the playoffs. Yeah, there's always a couple of teams out there that end up kind of doing the opposite of what everybody thinks. So, ironically, you would expect them to be improved this year, and with that being said, it wouldn't surprise me if they somehow end up being worse. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I can see it. The reason I have them, the main reason I picked them at 4th over Minnesota is because they have a guy like McKinnon, and I don't see anybody in Minnesota's roster like McKinnon that can really just kind of put the team on his back.
Yeah, so. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, St. Louis, Minnesota. I mean, they're like even the Star. So. I know I talked about with the Pacific how the Sharks, Ducks, and Kings are kind of all the same team to me, and it's just like they're probably all going to finish very close to each other and whatever. That's kind of the same way like I feel about the Stars, Blues, and Wild. It's like they're all going to be pretty solid teams, but probably at least 2 of the 3 will get in, but what are they going to do when they get in? Historically, not a whole lot. So,
yeah. I mean, like I said, the Stars, you could easily have 6 out of 7 teams in the Central finish with 90-plus points this year.
Yeah, right.
It happened last year. I mean, so.
Yeah, and especially with the way the Hawks have fallen off. I just don't see anybody, nobody's beating the Preds or Jets. So.
Yeah. No, I like the move St. Louis made in the offseason. I think they've improved their roster a lot, but I still think that they don't have what they need to get past Winnipeg or Nashville. So.
Right. Yeah. Well.
All right.
Yeah, like I said, we're over an hour, so I guess we should probably wrap this up.
Sounds good, man.
Yeah. Okay. So oh, before I let you go,
Yes, sir.
this weekend obviously was the beginning of college football. I don't
hmm
think I saw any, but were there any big upsets or anything, or not really?
There was a close one. Appalachian State pushed Penn State, who was ranked 10th, I think,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
to overtime.
Yeah, they went to,
Um,
yeah, okay.
App State actually had a lead with a minute and a half, like a minute and 8 seconds left, but Penn State drove down and tied it, and then won it in OT. But that'll hurt Penn State's ranking because App State isn't even they're they were only like 3 years in the FCS. They were a Div 2 team for a long time. So,
Jeez.
um,
Didn't they take?
but
Didn't they push somebody else to the edge a couple years ago?
they
Right?
beat Michigan when Michigan was ranked number
That's
5.
right.
And
That's
that was,
right.
That
Yeah.
was like 5 years ago, I think.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, I'm sure we've touched on college football in the past. I mean, we don't do it a whole lot just because there's so much of it. But obviously, when things happen,
hmm
we'll touch on it. And actually, we didn't bring up Nate Schmidt. He got suspended, right?
Yeah, 20 games.
20 games for well, like they found some tiny trace of some kind of PEP in his blood, right?
Yeah, PED, some
Yeah,
banned
sorry,
substance.
PED.
I don't know what it was. They never specified what it was. It was an extremely trace amount, but the league has a no tolerance policy on it, so it doesn't matter how much they find, they're going to suspend you.
Yeah, that's brutal. That
I don't
sucks
know.
for
I'm not a fan of
Vegas,
it, truth be told.
yeah,
But it is what it is. So
yeah, not good for Vegas, that's for sure. That will just
yeah,
further contribute to what I think is going to be a rough year for them. But we'll see.
yeah,
But
yeah.
all right, man. Well, we'll wrap this up. And also next week is the beginning of the NFL, so obviously we were talking earlier. We're probably going to be filming separate episodes for the NFL and NHL. So
Until we finish these previews, at least.
yeah, I mean, we obviously only have the Eastern Conference left, which will be up maybe in a week or two.
Yeah.
But that'll do it. So make sure you check out the Console Space podcast. We get together to talk about video games. Check out our new show, Chords and Consoles. Pretty much the same format as the Console Space podcast. We talk games and whatnot, but we have a band on, and we talk about their music and all that fun stuff. And there's also plenty of episodes of Gameday gameplay out there if you are super bored.
28,
So,
actually.
28, yes. Soon, man, we're pushing 30. Good lord.
I know.
Makes me feel old,
I know.
because I am old. All right, dude. I appreciate it, and we'll do it again soon.
Sounds good, brother.
Later, man.